CTV News with Carlyle Fiset.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. We begin tonight in Oxford Park, where a substantial cleanup was required for a busted water main. The break was so intense, gushing water shooting into the air, debris flying, damaging vehicles and property. Brian Bicknell reports.
It flew out the back window of my truck.
Imagine coming home late from work and a little while later, this. It's what happened to Britannia Avenue resident Scott Bullard Saturday night.
So I'm told by 911 that I'm holding up their line by calling them to tell them that this line is doing this in the middle of our street. About 1:30 in the morning, next thing I know, there's just a massive explosion, and it just sounds like a whole bunch of rocks are hitting cars and houses and stuff. Didn't even know what it was. It sounded like almost like an ice maker.
Making matters worse, his car was parked next to the geyser full of work gear. The car is now a write-off.
My insurance company wants $1,000 deductible just to replace the stuff that's in there. And I don't understand. I mean, if it would be different if it was my fault.
The Dawson family across the street, also victim to the powerful outflow.
The water was just spewing everywhere about 100 feet up, just breaking apart concrete and the rest of the pavement.
Flying rocks took out a number of windshields and property left outside. Al Dawson's truck sustained $3,700 worth of damage.
The guy I talked to in the city told me it was an act of God and they weren't responsible, and I had to see my insurance company. I've talked to my insurance company. They don't value my truck as much as the cost of the repairs, so either I can fix it myself or they can give me a small amount of money and take my truck.
Neighbors say that with the high-pressure water gushing way up above the light standard and rocks being thrown about the street, a number of people called 911. Only much later did fire and police attend, and eventually city works crews to shut the water off. Ward Councilor David Ferreira says the city does have an emergency line, but it doesn't operate after hours.
I'm not surprised that the response would be we are there for emergency response, whether it's police, fire, or ambulance. So that just goes to the point that perhaps we maybe should look into an emergency after hours number that's 24/7.
Ferreira says he's waiting to hear from city staff on just what caused this violent water main break.
I've already requested staff to look into that part of the infrastructure to see if we have any plans in the works. But we're fortunate that it did happen at that time.
So if it was during the day, I could only imagine there would have been some damages and there's somebody hurt for sure.
Brian Bicknell, CTV News.
London City Councilor Susan Stevenson says she's connecting with colleagues from across the province, calling for changes to Integrity Commissioner investigations. As Daryl Newcomb reports, she believes the complaint process is being weaponized.
I have not found this to be an easy process this last couple of years.
Councillor Susan Stevenson not backing down in her efforts to see changes to municipal code of conduct investigations after being the subject of many complaints to the Integrity Commissioner. Most were dismissed, but 2 reports that she still disputes deemed her social media posts violated the code of conduct.
They're using these processes to help silence the elected representative of the people.
And Stevenson says they are the people who filed complaints.
It's been the social service agencies and those who work in that realm, and city staff as well.
In a social media post, she calls for changes to the complaint process to, quote, ensure that elected representatives of the public are free to work on their behalf without incivility, the weaponization of the Integrity Commissioner process, segregation, or bullying. The provincial government is looking to standardize municipal codes of conduct across Ontario, and when there's a violation, give the process more teeth. Those changes have been the subject of a lot of conversation this week at the annual conference of the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. Earlier this week, Stevenson sent this written submission to the Committee on Bill 9 at Queen's Park, claiming the investigations of her by the previous Integrity Commissioner had consequences beyond being formally reprimanded and having a month's pay suspended. Quote, the elected voices of many residents were diminished and devalued by a taxpayer-funded system that disrespected democracy at great financial expense and diminished community trust. Stevenson filed 2 complaints with the Ontario Ombudsman about the former Integrity Commissioner reports.
As of a couple of weeks ago, the Ombudsman's office was reaching out to me for clarification, and they assured me, are both actively under investigation right now.
Stevenson adds that she's connected with other councillors from across Ontario who have expressed similar concern that investigations are being used to intimidate and silence politicians.
This is not about sour grapes. This is about how do we proactively address the issues that have arisen during this term of council.
Daryl Newcomb, CTV News.
Officials with Air Canada say they're now trying to get their flight schedule back on track after announcing a tentative agreement this morning with flight attendants. The first planes took off this afternoon, but as Heather Wright reports, it could still be a week or more before things are back to normal.
Lines begin forming inside Terminal 1 at Toronto's Pearson Airport this afternoon, with Air Canada flights slowly returning to the air.
What's this process been like for you?
Hell.
The airline has warned getting back to normal could take 7 to 10 days, and many passengers are still stuck in limbo.
Getting bits and pieces. They don't seem to know what's going on themselves.
After 3 days on the picket line, CUPE, the union representing the roughly 10,000 Air Canada flight attendants, announced early this morning it had reached a deal with the airline. Full details of the agreement haven't been released, but Air Canada says its flight attendants will not only be the best paid in the country, they will also be compensated for pre- and post-flight work. With a deal now reached, the airline turns its attention to repairing its reputation.
We're deeply apologetic for what's going on. We understand the impact, the profound impact that this has had. We're going to do everything possible to get people home as quickly as we can.
Not paying flight attendants for on-the-ground work has been a common practice within the airline industry. And by changing its policy, experts expect other unions to ask for a similar deal in the future.
This will change the dynamics. This will eventually end up costing consumers more to fly because it increases the airline or the air carriers' costs of doing business. So we'll end up paying for this.
Prime Minister Mark Carney weighed in on the deal on social media, writing, "It is my hope that this will ensure flight attendants are compensated fairly at all times, while ending disruption for hundreds of thousands of Canadian families, workers and visitors to Canada." The strike has shone a light on the issue of unpaid work, with the Federal Jobs Department saying today its probe into these allegations will take between 6 and 8 weeks.
Air Canada says it hopes to get between 15% and 20% of its flights in the air today as it ramps up service. Because most of its fleet had to be returned to domestic airports due to the strike, every plane has to undergo engine and safety checks before it's cleared to fly. Heather Wright, CTV News, Mississauga, Ontario.
The federal government had tried to force striking flight attendants back to work by invoking a section of the Canada Labour Code. The union refused, an act of defiance that could influence future collective bargaining disputes in other sectors. Rachel Aiello reports.
The federal government moving so swiftly to try and force flight attendants back to work, and Air Canada stating it expected that move to be enforced, has riled up the organized labor movement, which is already predicting the way this dispute played out will be precedent-setting.
They were using this as a crutch, and over the weekend, the flight attendants made sure that that crutch snapped.
Workers' unions say they've been emboldened by the last 24 hours and flight attendants' ability to get a deal at the table after defying a federal arbitration order.
I very strongly hope that the message that this sends to employers and to our federal government is stay out of interference in collective bargaining and do not expect government to ride to your rescue.
The Liberal government has invoked Section 107 of the Canada Labour Code multiple times, including in recent port and rail strikes. But some Labour leaders hope the Air Canada instance was their last.
The message to parliamentarians is that this section of the Canada Labour Code has got to go.
Asked today if she was concerned that how this strike played out has laid the groundwork for Section 107 to no longer be a viable tool in future disputes, Jobs Minister Patty Hajdu's office wouldn't say.
I think what is going to happen over the next little while is Section 107 of the Canada Labour Code that some people argue has been abused in recent years by the federal government, is maybe hit a wall, and it's maybe there's going to be the brakes put on it. Because the only power that directive has is when workers comply.
Flight attendants are denying your back to work order. The government is also being accused of misreading the public mood.
Their decision to force flight attendants back to work so quickly actually inflamed the issue. It forced them to defy orders of government. It sort of really went against what I think the Carney brand is built on. And to many Canadians, that decision didn't really feel right.
The question is now whether other unions would react similarly if talks break down. And with Canada Post heading back to the bargaining table in its protracted dispute with postal workers, we could soon get that answer. Rachel Aiello, CTV News, Ottawa.
London police say they've located a vehicle they say was involved in an East End shooting last week. Police say the red Land Rover was found outside the city, but they wouldn't specify where. They had previously reported a man found with critical injuries from a gunshot in the early morning hours of August 11th. They say that man was rushed to hospital and has since been released. At this point, no suspects have been arrested. Police in Oxford County say they've charged a driver from the Niagara region accused of causing a fatal crash this spring. It happened north of Woodstock back in April. Police say a commercial vehicle and a sedan collided. The person driving the car was taken to hospital but did not survive. Today, police announced a careless driving causing death charge against the person driving the other vehicle. Fire investigators are looking into what sparked a house fire last night in Sarnia. Fast-moving flames jumped from one home to another, with 3 people managing to escape unharmed. Sean Irvin reports.
A Sarnia fire investigator assesses a home on Griffith Road. The split-level residence was heavily damaged in a blaze that broke out at 11 p.m. Monday. Peyton West, who lives next door, said she and her mother were alerted by a bang and the smell of smoke.
First, we thought it was our house, so I started freaking out. Came outside, and my mom realized the neighbor's house was on fire.
Peyton went to look for herself. She immediately felt the intense heat.
The fire was huge. It was the whole right side of the house. It was like it lit up the whole street.
Moments later, firefighters arrived with word that a family could be inside.
Fortunately, all 3 residents had gotten out of the house already, and we proceeded to fight the fire and do search and rescue.
The family had escaped out the back door of the home and were quickly guided to safety. Meanwhile, it only took minutes for the fire to spread next door. Initially, 3 stations numbering nearly 20 firefighters were called to the scene, but as the neighboring house caught fire, a 4th station was notified. With the extra crew targeting the advancing flames, the blaze was under control within a half an hour. Damage is extensive. Fire investigators spent several hours at the scene searching for a cause. While the status of the units in this case is unclear, investigators are in general reminding the public about the importance of smoke alarms.
Over 2/3 of people that die in fires is because they don't have working smoke alarms.
But thankfully, in this fire, all escaped unharmed.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm just glad everyone's out and safe.
In Sarnia, Sean Irvin, CTV News.
Officials at City Hall say the municipality is maintaining a hybrid work schedule for office staff for now. Premier Doug Ford is ramping up pressure on municipalities to return all workers to the office 5 days a week. Last week, he announced remote work for provincial staff would end in January, and he reiterated that stance yesterday in Ottawa at the Ontario Municipalities Convention. London's acting city manager issued a statement saying the city is following council's direction to have a permanent hybrid work policy. The Ukrainian community in Elgin County has started an art project trying to raise awareness for their loved ones overseas and money to support their resistance to Russian aggression. With more, here's Brent Lale.
9-year-old Ivanka Biga likes to play a piece for peace. It relaxes her as she worries every day about the safety of her relatives in Ukraine.
I miss my grandma, and, well, she used to come visit me, but then when the war started, she stopped visiting.
The Elgin County Ukrainian community and local artists have collaborated on the Piano Peace Project.
This was one way of music just kind of being that healer for them and coming together, community, sitting around the piano, and that's what they're doing in Ukraine. If there's a place that has been bombed, there's maybe an instrument that's been left standing, and the piano is one of them. They'll paint it, and that is their sense of solidarity and brings resilience to them again.
You can see there's a map of Ukraine, and all of these symbols are from the Ukrainian heritage. And my parents were immigrants who fled after World War II, fled Europe to come to this land of strength and beauty and peace. And I felt that it was so important to come and help all the people that had also been displaced.
We've been sending things like tourniquets, medical supplies, as well as humanitarian aid. So that's the purpose of having the piano. Play a piece for peace, give us a donation, and we will be sending it to where it's needed.
And the need is as great as ever. As President Donald Trump pushes to end the war, Russia continues to attack Ukraine with drones and missiles.
It would be really nice to not have, the bloodshed. It's devastating for family and friends of people living there.
The piano will remain at the local Home Hardware, where they will accept donations until the end of August. It will then move to a new location, which is yet to be revealed. Brent Lale, CTV News.
Still to come, Canadian-made humanoids. The Southwestern Ontario researchers building robots for the jobs people don't want. Canada's main stock index finished lower today, weighed down by losses in basic material stocks. The TSX is down 99 points. In New York, the Dow gained at 10. The Nasdaq fell 315. The Canadian dollar dropped almost a quarter cent today. On commodity markets, gold is down almost $20 an ounce, and oil lost 93 cents a barrel. Federal Conservative leader Pierre Polyv will return to Parliament Hill after a decisive by-election win last night in Alberta. With more on his victory and what voters are saying in the aftermath, here's Kathy Lee.
A triumphant return to Parliament, Pierre Polyv clinching victory in a high-stakes by-election with a landslide 80% of the vote.
Getting to know the people in this region has been the privilege of my life.
His supporters in Camrose rejoicing.
I'm very, very pleased and happy with how it all went.
We need somebody for the West, and I think he's the guy for it.
This is conservative country.
The decisive win for the Conservative leader was expected.
Battle River Crowfoot have traditionally elected a Conservative MP with between 70 and 85% of the vote.
The sprawling rural central Alberta riding was strategically selected after Polyv lost his seat in the general election. Former MP Damien Couric, who won with 83% of the vote, stepped aside so his party's leader could run. Even in this safe riding, many wondered if he could match his predecessor's support.
I was very surprised that Mr. Polyv would get 80%. I thought it was going to be a little bit less.
No, I'm not surprised at all.
Strong backing aside, some say Polyv parachuted in and may not prioritize local concerns in Ottawa.
I'm very disappointed and shocked. I thought Albertans were smarter. He'll never be back here unless he has to show up for something.
Voter turnout was lower compared to the general election, which was expected, but turnout was higher compared to other by-elections. Kathy Lee, CTV News, Camrose.
Meanwhile, the federal Green Party leader has announced she will step down before the next election.
My main announcement was to our membership, be ready for the idea that I will not be leading us into the next federal election, but I'm not going anywhere for now.
Elizabeth May has led the Greens through each of the past 5 federal elections, and she's currently the only elected Green MP representing a riding in BC. May says she intends to stay on as an MP and leader pending a leadership review.
Good evening. The main rain comes to an end overnight, overcast with some light drizzle. I think I may be in love with this Clea. She's a gorgeous little girl. Thanks, Emily, for sending this one in. What a great photograph. Overcast conditions to start your day, 17 to 19 degrees and winds light out of the north, but picking up a bit heading into the afternoon. Stay with us. I'll have your forecast coming up.
Welcome back on the desk with Julie now, and I do believe it's been a while since we've seen a day like we saw today with just overcast all day, drizzly all day, and it sounds like probably going to be a similar story into tomorrow.
Yeah, overcast, not quite as much rain tomorrow, so the main rain moving out tonight. It was nice though today. I was out in the
Refreshing.
rain. Yes, I just kind of stood there and let the drops kind of come down. It was just so nice for a change. In terms of our high temperature, not getting quite as warm as I thought we would this afternoon. The reason, that warm front waving its way off to the south. 20 degrees our high temperature, as you can see, 13 degrees our low, comparing that with what's normal coming in below. I haven't said that too often this summer. Overnight, 17 degrees in the Forest City. The rain moves out, the probability of showers drops off, and the risk of thunderstorms as well. As we head through the overnight, just a little bit of light drizzle, and that's what's expected heading into tomorrow morning. So a little low pressure system with this wavy warm front. So I was expecting this warm front to drive northward through the day today, dragging this rain and putting us in the warm sector. But what happened is the warm front just stayed a bit further south, so we were into more of a steady rain through the day and not getting into that warm sector, so not pushing those temperatures up. I briefly wanted to touch on Hurricane Erin as it continues to churn out over the sea. You can see it'll be moving offshore in the coming day, so staying out over the Atlantic, and it will cruise its way up the coast and stay south of the Maritimes, which is great news. It'll still affect the shoreline communities, but it'll go from a Cat 2 to a Cat 1, and by Sunday afternoon, you can see it continues to drive out into the ocean. As we take a look at the next 24-hour model, overcast conditions through the early part of the day. High pressure is going to try and punch its way in with some dry air. That dry air will start to filter in as we head into Wednesday night. So we could see some peaks of sunshine tomorrow in through parts of Midwestern Ontario, but we will start the day overcast across the region and light drizzle rather, as we head through the mid-morning. 26 degrees with winds out of the north-northeast and mainly cloudy. Thursday, sunshine and 25. Lots of sunshine on Friday and 27. So we're going to heat up as we head into the weekend. Saturday and Sunday, a mix of sun and cloud. Now, Saturday into Sunday, we will see a cold front come through, and that will drop our temperature. So that will likely mean some scattered showers and thunderstorms. Timing likely overnight. So that would mean that we'll leave off the rain through the day, but you can see those probabilities holding at about a 30% chance. But when we go from about 26 down to 22, that's a bit of a sharper drop off. So possibility of a little rain coming. 19 on Monday, back into a mix of sun and cloud. That's a drop in 19 on Tuesday. So forecast models are indicating another cool air mass arriving for early next week. It'll feel almost fall-like in southern Ontario. Midwestern Ontario, here on Perth, mainly cloudy with some light drizzle. Still humid tomorrow, and daytime highs over the next couple of days, 24 to 26. Your probability for showers is a bit higher over the weekend, and this will be in through Grey and Bruce County, but a 40% chance. Huron and Perth, you'll stay in that 30% mark. So this is not a big weather system coming in this weekend. I'll keep you posted, but the cool down is what I'm sure everyone will be talking about next week. As we start to wind down August, temperatures will feel more fall-like across the region. Carlyle, back to you.
Thanks very much, Julie. The federal government announced a multi-million-dollar investment today at Bruce Power. As Scott Miller reports, that money will be used to expand medical isotope production, an increasingly critical component in cancer treatments.
Ontario's nuclear reactors already produce half of the world's supply of medical isotopes to help treat cancers and tumors. A $13 million investment announced in Bruce County today by the federal government will increase Ontario's spot on the world isotope stage.
It's one of the only facilities in the world that can produce medical isotopes. Today we're investing in a second isotope line. That'll let us more than double the production.
Our goal is to send the world a very clear message that they can count on our supply. And that's really important when it comes to treating patients.
For years, medical isotopes were produced in specialized research reactors, but Bruce Power is using the first commercial nuclear reactor in the world to produce lutetium-177, which is being billed as a much more targeted treatment for cancer without the side effects of treatments like chemotherapy.
Before it was used in developed in research reactor, it's like having a small flame. So if you want to cook something on your small flame, it's going to take forever. Well, we have the sun. Right? So what would take years to produce, we produce it in one day.
Skoniak says its entire isotope production system at Bruce Power cost nearly $200 million to implement and is a partnership between Bruce Power, Isogen, and the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation.
I think it should be a big moment for our communities because, you know, this isn't just a local opportunity, but an opportunity that goes right across the world.
Right now, the refinement of the medical isotopes produced in Ontario happens in Europe, but Bruce Power plans to reclaim more of the isotope supply chain with the construction of a decanning facility at the Bruce Power site by the middle of next year.
It's about us incrementally stepping through and having more of that capability, not only right here in Canada, but Ontario and right here in rural Ontario, which is fantastic.
In Bruce County, Scott Miller, CTV News.
Finally tonight, Southwestern Ontario researchers and their human-like robots. It's expected to soon be a multi-billion-dollar industry. Spencer Turcotte has more on the team trying to put Canada at the forefront.
A quick stretch of the fingers.
The range of motion is incredible.
And these robots are ready to work. At Mercy Robotics in Cambridge, Tariq Rahim and his team have developed human-like robots that can do human tasks.
Everything is Mercy designed, and we're really proud of it.
Mercy says their robots are already addressing critical Canadian challenges like gathering data for remote First Nations water plants, providing support in aging care facilities, and filling essential roles in precarious industries.
These robots are going to tackle the repetitive, monotonous jobs. And most importantly, they're going to handle the backbreaking labor that humans should really not be doing.
Rahim says people shouldn't worry about the humanoids taking human jobs. They may replace some roles, but he says with any emerging technology, new job opportunities arise. That's backed by global humanoid robot market projections, which show it growing from $2.92 billion this year to $15.26 billion by 2030.
And those are the most conservative estimates, so I wouldn't fear too much about a dystopian future with no employment opportunities.
The robot moves around on wheels with the help of a joystick.
The reason we do wheel designs is because they're inherently stable. You cannot knock this guy over.
In the manufacturing sector, Canada ranked 12th in robot installations behind countries like the US and Mexico. Yet Mercy says they have the tech to catapult Canada to the top of the world rankings.
In a way, it's the most rewarding feeling ever. So I imagine that's what having children feels like.
Spencer Turcotte, CTV News, Cambridge.
That's it for us. Thanks for watching. For all of us here at CTV News London, I'm Carlyle Fiset. Have a good night.